Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans, college football coaching firing fans, college football coaching hiring fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. But Clay Hall's not here, ladies and gentlemen. He's on assignment. So I brought in a crack sub in Dillon Davis of the Delaware Gazette, a guy I've known for a little while, gotten to know a lot. I mean, we've been part of a couple of scramble golf teams, and we even won a scramble a week ago this past Sunday. And I really enjoy playing golf with him because he can smack it, but he also he can talk the game and walk the game. Dillon Davis, welcome to the Tim May Show, my man.
Tim May, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Certainly echo the sentiments you just said. It's been nice to get to know you and love talking sports with you, certainly. So I'm happy to be here.
You're echoing. More like mirroring. You more like mirrored it because the bottom line is, I mean, we cover a crazy sport, man. You cover Ohio State sports for the Delaware Gazette, but a lot of people pick up your stuff. A lot of people, you become a popular dude a little bit, in my opinion, on Twitter. Posting some of the videos you post, et cetera. And matter of fact, we're going to steal a few of those for this show later in this show. I also have Matt Wilhelm, my usual Monday feature with Matt Wilhelm coming on. Feature, heck, it's half the show. But we talk about coaching changes and the dramatics that can bring, but also, what are some of these schools thinking? And maybe some of these schools are thinking out loud. When you look at what just happened at Penn State, getting rid of James Franklin, after 11 years and half a season?
Yeah, I mean, James
Franklin is gone. But here's the thing, the timing of it is Matt and I talk about, it kind of, you go, what are they doing? This guy's gotten them almost to the mountaintop, but I keep going back to these biblical references of Moses. He got the Israelites where he could look down into the valley, but he didn't get to go down with them. And that's kind of what James Franklin has done for these many years, because they've just fallen short in one form or fashion, in spectacular fashion against big-time teams. But the reason, if timing makes sense at all in this firing him after the dramatic third straight loss of the year and to another 20-plus point underdog in Northwestern, it makes sense in the fact that now you got to figure Penn State's out of any kind of running for the college football playoff field, right?
Sure, yeah.
And for the Big Ten field. So why not make this move, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a stunning turn of events. Obviously, you go from a team that's natty or bust to a team that's going through a program reset in 6 weeks, 6 games essentially. But I know a lot of people, some people are kind of divided about the timing of it. But given that those two losses, those last two to UCLA and to Northwestern, being 20-plus point favorites, I think at that point you didn't have a choice anymore. Your hand was forced, and you might as well go ahead and get out in front of it. If you knew you were going to do it anyways, let it be known to the college football world that job is open, because it's still a very good job, and let people kind of start the ducks kind of start to fall in a row.
Yeah, but here's the thing: you never know when a coaching regime is finally going to click. Yeah. But all you know about Penn State now is, I'm talking about, and take you all the way to a national championship. If that's everything it means anymore, then I think we're in for a world of hurt down the road. But the point is, James Franklin has gotten them almost there, man, a couple of times, including, ladies and gentlemen, Penn State lost in the college football playoff semifinals to Notre Dame last season. A Notre Dame, which Ohio State beat in the college football playoff championship game. And what I'm thinking as we're sitting here right now is just the wild ride that college football has been on, just in the Big Ten, just in the upper level of the Big Ten over the last, going back, see, what's this, the 10th month of the year? 11 months ago, Ryan Day and Ohio State had lost to Michigan for the 4th straight year. And the clamor, not just the clamor, the pressure to maybe make a change at head coach was there. It was palpable. And Ryan Day had to feel it and know it. For sure, athletic director Ross Bjork had to feel it and know it. They opted not to make that immediate call because they were going to be in the college football playoff, and let's see what happens. And as much as we like Ryan Day, I like Ryan Day. I've liked him since the first moment I met him. sometimes the forces are such that even the athletic director is not fully in control of what's going on. Well, clearly, at big-time schools, the athletic director may be the last guy to say, okay, let's do it, because other people have made up their minds. But then Ryan Day goes on a 4-game win streak like no other time in history of college football, and Ohio State wins a national championship, and now he's celebrated. And James Franklin and Penn State could have beaten Notre Dame in that semifinal last year, right?
They were one drive away from doing so.
Correct. Of course, you could say that about 100 about 100 of his key losses. Well, he hadn't had that many losses. That's the point. But it just shows you just how on a thread maybe these things are, and when you talk about the amount of money involved, it doesn't make sense that things are hanging on a thread like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the Ryan Day thing, like my first year on the beat was Ryan Day's first year, so I've been with like Ryan throughout my entire time.
Yeah,
and I'll admit that after that Michigan game last year, I didn't think that he was going to get fired, but I wondered how he would survive it as well. It just seemed like it was that ugly in Columbus, and obviously, as you said, they don't, and the rest is history. He goes on and makes that run. I think that the one thing about Ryan Day, though, is you probably knew that very much was still in the cards, to some degree for Ohio State, whereas because he'd been on the cusp of that before, I don't think that James Franklin had that same benefit of the doubt. Although I will say, I thought he had built up more equity with that administration than apparently he had. But again,
well, he's going to get his equity, $56 million over 6 years.
But again, to say what you want to say about Ryan Day, obviously, I think he still does have a Michigan problem that he still has to address. We'll find out. But at the end of the day, again, his program was routinely right there. To lose to 2 20-plus point underdogs in back-to-back weeks is a whole nother situation that, I don't think Ryan Day survives that last year if something like that happened either. So
but it's kind of like it's PR.
Yeah,
I mean, it's based on PR. James Franklin, you were over there last year. I was over there when James Franklin was leaving the field last year after Ohio State.
With fans.
The fans were unmerciful. I'm talking about the outspoken fans were unmerciful. They were cursing before they ever got to the area where they could curse him. Right. I mean, it was underneath that stadium, Beaver Stadium. It was crazy how upset they were about losing another big game, and so I can understand the dissatisfaction, but I also understand of playing it out. Because like I just said, just like Ohio State after the Michigan game, Ohio State went on to win a national championship. After losing to Ohio State last year, Penn State went to the college football playoff semifinals. Right. They didn't just get in and take their money and run. And the point is, you never know when it's going to happen. Yeah. But this is the guy, for whatever you want to think, Joe Paterno's ghost is still floating around over there and making think, no, that's not what's happening. This is the guy that got you almost there. How far do you ride it out? I guess the main thing is what happened on Saturday at Penn State was the embarrassment of losing at home to Northwestern, which took a knee to not make it any worse than it was, but took a knee, made plays when it had to win that game, which is the opposite of what Penn State's been able to do in big games like that, like the 4th and 2, the previous week at UCLA, whatever that play was, that they ran with Drew Aller. But on top of that, you lose your starting quarterback for the rest of the year and Drew Aller in the Northwestern game. But pride has so much to do with major college athletics. It's nuts, Now, there's, as we're recording this, there's some rumor floating around that Kevin Stefanski may be on the way out at Cleveland with the Browns. Look how many chances he's had, and my point is pride comes in all kinds of weight forms, right? And you got to figure this is definitely coming from the top down when it comes to Penn State. And by top down, I'm talking about the big money guys, whatever. You know what? Now that we're out of it, we're not going to make the college football playoff. What's our next step? Because we don't think this guy is the guy that can take us to the promised land.
Well, there's rumor, and I have no idea. I'm not substantiating this rumor at all, but there is a rumor out there that Adidas was somehow influencing this decision because Penn State's about to head to, Adidas. They're going to leave their Nike contract when it's up.
Well, I think you can make up any rumor you want right now. Some guy started a rumor this morning. They're going to hire Brian Hartline, and I'm just going, if that's the move they make, then I like Brian Hartline as much as you do.
Yeah.
But what they need to find the next Kurt Cignetti type guy, or put some effort into it. Yeah. Is Matt Rule that guy? I don't know. Is Manny Diaz that guy? Right. I don't know.
Those are going to be the three most popular names. I made the comment to you earlier. Nobody loved what happened yesterday more than Kurt Cignetti, because one way or the other, Kurt Cignetti's price just went up, whether it's to stay there or whether it's somebody to come get him. But if it's not Cignetti, is Matt Rule really the guy that you said? I know Matt Rule played high school football in State College. He walked on under Paterno. So I understand that means a lot to him, but is he really the guy that you say, like, clearly he can get this program over whatever hump, that is? I'm not so sure about that. And there's a very real possibility that in 3 or 4 years, Penn State's looking back and saying, man, we might have jumped the shark here. Like maybe being on the cusp every year in and year out wasn't so bad. Kind of what you've seen in Nebraska before Rule got there, where, that was a lifeless program, and they fired, a guy who was 9-3, 10-2 every year. So we'll see. Well,
Frank Solich followed in the Tom Osborne tradition. Then they thought they could do better and upgrade offensively, get into the 21st century. And obviously that blew up in their faces. Talk about Nebraska. Meanwhile, Frank Solich, went to Ohio University and did his thing. But the bottom line is, you always think you can do better. You're kind of dealing with what other people have built, and you think, well, like at Indiana, they thought they could do better than Bill Mallory,
right?
Who got them to bowl games, which they weren't even going to, and then they went on this long journey between Bill Mallory and Kurt Cignetti, right? Kevin Wilson didn't get it done. I can name everybody they hired.
Tom Allen had a couple of
Sam Weiss didn't get it done. I mean, right on down the line. I mean, so you always think that you're here. How come this guy can't get us to here? And I hate to bring up this example because I think it's bogus based on the fact of the cheating scandal in terms of advanced scouting and everything else that went on at Michigan. But Michigan was pretty much Jim Harbaugh had worn out his welcome.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct.
Especially after the COVID year. And they stuck with him, and, we all know what happened after that. But they did get to the promised land and win a national championship.
In their optics up in Ann Arbor, yes, they stuck with him and got to it. But you're absolutely right. He was on his way out. They were done and fed up with him in Ann Arbor.
Yes.
Until
took a pay cut, blah, 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 right on down the line. Everything you can. And then, but they got where they were going. Yeah. But now, just right now, as we sit here, before we get to the Matt Wilhelm part of the program, as we sit here right now, Alabama has rediscovered greatness in football. They got a 3-point win at Missouri. Yeah. They've gone unbeaten since Florida State beat them in the season opener. And now everybody wants Jay Norvell out at Florida State because Florida State had this great win to start the season there, and they've lost their first 3 games or 4 in the ACC.
Yeah. I mean, that's
as quickly as things change now. It's kind of nuts, right?
Yeah, at places like that, at places like Florida State, your Penn States, your Alabamas, obviously your Ohio States, places like that. Yeah, of course it can change.
In Florida, sitting there.
In Florida. Yeah, Florida's sitting there as well. And I know Billy Napier surely going to get fired at the end of this year, if not before the end of the year. But that's life at, those kind of places.
What is the count now on number of FBS coaches? Trent Dilfer. The guy at Oregon State, whose name I never even knew.
I think that's probably why he's out.
But then the earlier wave, and stuff. Yeah. And the thing about it is, Matt Wilhelm and I talk about, this is right now the preeminent. I don't even know what that word means, but the preeminent program where they're looking for a new guy is Penn State, without a doubt.
Absolutely,
right.
It's the number one job open.
I mean, this was a team that went to the college football playoff semifinal last year, had all these guys back. Changed defensive coordinators to finally get them over the hump.
Spent $3.5 million to go do that.
And they couldn't stop Northwestern when they needed to on Saturday. Couldn't stop UCLA when they needed to on Saturday. I'm not knocking Jim Knowles, but sometimes things are projects.
We know very well. Every Ohio State fan knows very well what Jim Knowles' defense is like and how long it takes to kind of settle into it and start to operate it. And Penn State's finding that out in the hard way this year. So
James Franklin found it out in the hard way. Right. The whole staff, this has ripple effects throughout football because whoever they end up hiring, for example, I mean, we can say Kurt Cignetti. I mean, he's been pretty adamant that he wants to stick around and do his thing. And this is before Bloody Sunday. But he wants to stick around and do his thing at Indiana because they've embraced him. They gave him his big shot in FBS land, And boy, are they reaping the benefits of that, but so is he,
Sure.
right? From a financial standpoint, they've got it going on over there, man, in terms of NIL, burgeoning NIL facilities, right on down the line. And why can't Indiana keep it going on based on where, it's located really in a better situation geographically than Penn State is. Yeah. You've been to Happy Valley.
Sure.
You got to be happy to be there or you're looking somewhere else. Whereas, Bloomington's like 45, 50 minutes south of Indianapolis, just north of Louisville. I mean, but it's in football territory. I mean, it's really funny. I got a best buddy of mine who grew up and went to Indiana. Was a proud graduate of the basketball school in Indiana. Yeah. Dude, in 2 years, it is transformed. That's a really football school. I mean, they're playing football at the highest form. I was telling people this for months going into this season. I liked Indiana better this year than I did last year.
Yeah.
Because I thought they upgraded where they needed to in the transfer portal most of all at quarterback. I thought they had a big-time quarterback now. I thought Rourke got them places but couldn't get them, past a couple of levels there. And I kept reminding people about Indiana. They lost 2 games last year to the 2 teams that played for the national championship.
Right. Look, they came into Columbus last year, and it was very obvious that they were kind of a little bit overwhelmed by the
Yes.
They didn't handle it well. So what they went through last year is certainly playing a big role in what they're doing this year. They kind of, they got that taste last year. It was important for them to do that. So I agree with you. I think that they're a better football team this year than they were last year.
But football is such a fickle game. Pardon the pun again.
Yeah, there you go. Speaking
Luke
of coaches
Fickell,
about to be on the way out. Speaking
of that, that's got to be the hottest seat in coaching right now, that and Florida.
Yeah, I agree.
For Luke Fickell, I don't, he got that re-up, in the off season, that show of confidence, and we'll see how long that lasts. But Indiana needed sort of a miracle play to beat Iowa the week before. So the idea that they're a juggernaut, I think, is tainted a little bit by the win they had over Illinois. And then, of course, it's human nature to compare that, the way they beat Illinois, with the way Ohio State beat Illinois this weekend. I thought Ohio State, you were there, thought Ohio State dominated the game for the most part. People can look at the total offense numbers and go A, B, C, and D, but Ohio State had such a short way to go on 3 of its touchdowns. Of course, they're leaving 150 yards on the table right there, right?
Their average starting field position was the 48-yard line.
That's crazy.
Across the game. That's wild. They absolutely did dominate the game. There's no question about that. If you want to sit here and nitpick the run game, I agree with you. I think there's some concerns there.
Yeah.
I think there are definitely some concerns about that run game as you look towards that trip to Ann Arbor at the end of the year.
Yep.
But in terms of this game, they did dominate it, and they went and beat a top 20 team on the road by 18 points. They covered the spread, and you still came away from it, as Ryan said after the game, feeling like you left a lot out there. And that's true. That's true. They did not play great, and they won the game by 18 points. So, you're going to have some of that along the way.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, let's get to my my weekly conversation with Matt Wilhelm. Just talking about a lot of things, but mainly about the coaching changes and stuff and what that can or cannot do. Because, what I bring this up as an example to him, what Indiana did is very close to what Ohio State did in 2001.
Yeah.
Ohio State reached down to whatever it was called then. It wasn't the FBS. It was Division, one double A. Yeah. And grabbed Jim Trussell, and 2 years later they won a national championship. Now, the first year wasn't a miracle like what Cignetti did a year ago at Indiana. I mean,
there were signs.
Yeah.
There were signs.
They beat Michigan. If they hadn't beaten Michigan, they hadn't beaten Michigan that year, the signs wouldn't have been really good. Very blowing true. A big lead at Penn State that year and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
matter of fact, But the bottom line is that they did in Indiana, and it paid off for them. Yeah. Meaning they didn't hire the hottest name out there. They went and ended up getting a guy. Now they did.
Glenn Mason was the hot name, right?
Well, Glenn Mason was the hot name, and they basically just did a cursory interview with him. He thought it was going to be his next moment, and it didn't turn out that way. And then Mike Bellotti, we understand. Mike Bellotti was the hot name as far as Andy Geiger was concerned. And then Mike Bellotti, there's all kinds of stories about Mike Bellotti then. A lot of it's folklore, but you supposedly asked, do they play Michigan every year in his interview? But the bottom line is they still liked him because he was a name out of left field, as opposed to but I told Jim Trussell on the first night of the search, I said, unless somebody just comes and just blows them away or comes out of left field, I said, I think you're going to get the job, because I explained to him why maybe Andy Geiger would shy away from Glenn Mason, because that would be what all the powers that be are telling him that's who they wanted him to hire, type thing. And so you never know. You think you know what Penn State may do with this opening, but you never know until they pull the trigger, right?
Yep, absolutely. And just real quick, what might have been moment for college football if Mike Bellotti takes that Ohio State job, if he gets that job. What happens to Oregon at that point?
Right.
To become what they are now, and then also obviously what does Ohio State become? So that's interesting. I never really knew that Mike Bellotti was a name that was being thrown around.
Oh yeah, I got thrown out of the NetJets headquarters over there at Port Columbus because I went in and asked if I could talk to him, because I knew he was in the back room waiting to catch his private plane back to Oregon, and that's another story. Big man puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "Are you Tim May?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "With the Columbus Dispatch?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You have to leave." I said, walk by the attendant or the lady there at the receptionist, and I said, "Well, you got to give me A for effort."
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth a shot.
But this guy was huge, man. The guy, I'm 6'2", and this guy was like a foot taller than me. It was kind of scary.
Was it security at the airport, or was he with?
No, security at NetJets.
Okay, I got you.
No, I wasn't. Yeah. No, I think Arch Griffin was back there with him along, I think, with Geiger in the back room, way back in the back, wherever they keep the VIPs.
Sure.
I'm rarely been a VIP.
You're not back there?
No, wasn't back there. Didn't have my VIP card on me. But anyway, hey, like I said, let's get back to my conversation with Matt Wilhelm. Then we'll come back and we'll talk Buckeyes. We'll talk about coming out of that game, where they need to go with the run game. And Jermaine Matthews, you provided me some good video here with Ryan, and with Jermaine Matthews had a day, man. He had a day. He had a pass interference call in the end zone, big whoopee. Yeah. He had a day, and then Julian saying just a little bit of sound from him about dealing with what the cards that were dealt. Yep. You still win. So let's go to our conversation, my weekly conversation with Matt Wilhelm.
Oh yeah. Monday's always my weekly visit with one of my good friends. Guy I used to cover, but now I call him a good friend. It's okay if I call you a good friend now, isn't it, Matt Wilhelm?
That's the truth. I'm a good friend.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I tell you, we should have been recording what we were talking about before we actually started this. But the bottom line is, what a strange time to be a head football coach in modern college football, because so many have been fired now, basically by mid-season, and the latest shoe to drop was James Franklin. We're going to talk about Ohio State and how it looked against Illinois, et cetera, in just a second. But, you've got a son who's being recruited. Obviously, he's committed to North Carolina. We've heard all the hullabaloo going on with just Bill Belichick, but North Carolina, for the time being, is standing pat and stuff. But, I would think you and Mason, your son, big-time offensive lineman for Lakewood St. Ed's, I would imagine y'all have had conversations about what's going on and how the landscape can change in a heartbeat. But loyalty, there's a thing about allegiance and loyalty, but how long does that loyalty last, you think, for some of these recruits? Obviously not very long for Penn State recruits who found out James Franklin was fired on Sunday, and many of them have now jumped ship, as in jumped into the water waiting for another ship to come by and pick them up.
Well, sure.
I don't know, man. How would you? I mean, you coach young men at Lakewood St. Ed's, and you've got a young man who is a player and is basically a big time prospect. What's the counseling you would just give as a general rule about letting these seas calm down and see who's in charge?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think for speaking for Mason, the kind of like the social media firestorm that hit all things North Carolina football, that includes Bill Belichick, Michael Lombardi, was a little wild for us as a family. But we're also not going to be one to be, quick on any trigger. And I think, as we've seen, and actually last night there's a Tar Pit podcast had 6 commits from the 2026 class. So Mason's recruiting class. Mason was not one of these commits on the podcast, just kind of reaffirming what Coach Belichick, what Michael Lombardi, what their said position coaches have said to them about a lot of the firestorm that's, become public, and how they're kind of standing pat. And I think that's the exact notion that Mason and I, are taking as a family. Does that mean that we're not being contacted by other schools that have recruited us in the past, or other schools that would potentially want to recruit us? No. Yeah. And I think the same can be said for all the other guys that were on that, the 6 guys plus the other, 30 guys that are, committed, because believe me, highly recruited guys and coaches at other places aren't dumb when there's blood in the water on a prospect, whether it's my son or somebody else. It's like, right. they're gonna jump or at least poke and see where they stand. As it relates to Penn State, I think I was a little shocked by the firing. And I think while reading some things about what has been going on, I can understand the frustration. I mean, but this guy, 34-8, in his last 3 seasons, and had you couple of plays away from playing in a national championship against our Buckeyes.
Yep.
And so it's a lot. I think it's a lot. It's a hard pill to swallow. I do know that last night, on social media, some of those committed, 4-star, 5-star guys that probably love the university and love the thought of playing football at Penn State, but even more so was doing it with James Franklin as their head football coach. Because there's not only going to be the head coach leaving, but it's also going to be the fallout of the staff. So right. as you're a young man or a family, you fall in love with the leader. That's the Ryan Day. And then it eventually, or that's James Franklin. And then it's also the coordinator and their plan for you as a player. And then your position coach and your trust in that this is the guy I want to go spend my next 3 to 5 years with. He's going to mold me. He's going to love me. He's going to be hard on me. He's going to develop me as a player and as a person. And when there's that uncertainty, if that guy's going to be there, or the fact or the rationalization that he's just flat out going to, if James Franklin's gone, he's going to be gone. Penn State football, the education that you could get at Penn State, you start to question that. It kind of loses this luster because the people that you're committing to, and again, go back to Woody Hayes, it's about the people, right?
Yeah.
The people that you're committing to are no longer going to be there. So your process kind of starts all over again. And I think it's completely unique. And I also believe, I'll just say, as it relates to James Franklin, take the money out of it, the $50 million, right? Which is in some cases, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, used to be a massive elephant in the room until Jimbo Fisher and his $77 million buyout kind of, became a thing. This is now the second largest buyout in college football coaching history. But the Powers, that's the athletic director. And I know the gentleman, I think Smart is, the athletic director. This firing probably only happens or makes sense to Penn State and Penn State's football if they believe there is a coach out there that they can go get who happens to be coaching somewhere or not coaching somewhere, that they can go get that will immediately come in and pick up exactly where James Franklin left off. Now, what does that look like? That means recruiting, top 5 recruiting class in the Big Ten, or top 15 recruiting class in the country. That means the 9+ wins per season. And it also believes that they're going to go get a guy that, if you're going to fire, James Franklin, that can win the big game, which I think prior to losing to UCLA, an 0-4 UCLA team on the road, and prior to losing to a 21-point underdog in Northwestern at home in 3 consecutive games in a row, was the knock against James Franklin was not, again, losing to Oregon really started this, is he the right guy for Penn State? So that being said, the powers at Penn State have to believe that there's a guy out there, and it's probably an extremely short list. It's an and/or. It's this guy or this guy, that they can come in and they're going to win 9 games or more. They're going to compete for a Big Ten championship, and they believe they have the accreditation and the past history to motivate a team and win against top 10 opponents. Yeah. Who is that? Is that Nick Saban? I don't know. Is that Matt Rule at Nebraska, who's a Penn State alum and grew up in State College? I don't know. Is that Rhett Lashley, from SMU? Yeah. Is that I don't know who those guys are, but this is again a massive hurdle for Penn State now. And then here's the other reason why I'll say, to put a bow on this conversation about Penn State and this coaching carousel, is you also only do this to begin those conversations like today with those individuals, because this hire, if this guy is currently employed somewhere else that you're talking to, won't happen until at the expiration of the regular football season, in that 5-week void before kind of the bowl season actually starts, or I'll say relevant bowl games actually start around January 1st.
Yeah. And some people are questioning the timing just of doing this, which means of firing James Franklin, which means obviously Pat Kraft, the folks at Penn State had to have had this in the back of their mind to begin with. But I understand the timing in the sense of after you lost the week before against UCLA, you've only got 2 losses. Ohio State won the national championship last year with 2 losses. You're still in the running to possibly make the college football playoff with a miraculous or a really strong finish to your season, which would have included a win over Ohio State, obviously. But now you're out of it. Penn State's not going to the college football playoff.
Also without Drew Aller,
Correct.
being hurt, 3 losses.
Yeah.
You lose your quarterback for the season, and
but you hope that's not. You hope the Drew Aller injury doesn't. But it does factor. But you understand what I mean.
It didn't factor into the firing, but
right.
But I'll be honest, it's like when you really take a deep dive, and it's not that I'm regurgitating what I've heard. It's like again, the hiring of Jim Knowles and the lack of production out of that defense in the way that it's actually looked this season, and you're making him the highest paid defensive coordinator in all of football. That's a mismanagement of funds.
Yes.
And an overvaluing of James Franklin to go get a guy, in conference that thinks he's automatically going to be the fix. I think it's also, without saying, I think the offensive coordinator sticking to his guns on scheme and not playing to the strengths of Drew Aller. So that's the mismanagement of your 2 most pinnacle positions in all of sports, besides you, the head football coach, your offensive defensive coordinator, and then the mismanagement of your quarterback, and not deviating from scheme to fit the strengths of your quarterback, instead making your quarterback fit your scheme. And we've seen that show up in those big games. You'll beat the run of the mill mid-tier of the Big Ten, which James Franklin was very, very good at. But every time you play, a team at a level, they're close, but they never get over the hump. Yeah. And so I think this is completely strategic by the powers at Penn State to get a head start and be the premier job on the market.
Yeah.
Maybe 15 years ago, UCLA might have been the premier job and Penn State was not. Okay. But those times have changed. So you're the premier job. So whomever, whether they're in retirement or coaching somewhere else, or they're just in between jobs, or it might be a professional coach that things aren't going swimmingly at the NFL level that you want to bring down. I don't know. But you have the premier job on the market. And this now gives you, by doing this now, it gives you the head start to be speaking to that individual and or his agents to set the table for interviews and moving through the vetting process to make that hire and be extremely proud and look back and go, I'm glad we did it the way we did it.
Hey, let me ask you this just before we move on. Let's say the Florida job comes open, because a lot of people think it still might. It might have come open while you and I were talking.
I agree.
Yeah. But just Florida and Penn State. What's the more premier job now, do you think? I mean, Florida, back in 2008, 2006 and 2008 won national championships, but hasn't really sniffed it since then. But they're in the, you know about Florida. So
of course,
people listening know about Florida. But for example, if you're a big-time candidate and you had a choice between those two, like Urban Meyer had a choice really between Florida and Notre Dame way back in 2005, the end of 2004 season, and he took Florida and then took it places, right? And then came.
That's a great question. That's a great question. That's an actual. So call yourself James Franklin. When it comes to Penn State and Florida, when you go back and you actually listen to Urban Meyer talk about why he went to Florida and didn't take the Notre Dame job. This was also a juncture of time when Urban Meyer had his children were on the younger side. I'll say all under the age of 15.
Yeah.
And Urban Meyer, and I'm not saying the sole reason why, there's many other reasons why, but he said part of it was, and I think this is actually a very similar analysis, is he took the Florida job because Florida, he can win the state of Florida from a recruiting standpoint, go into Georgia, Bama, the Carolinas, into Mississippi, over into Louisiana and maybe Texas. And he can stay in a 2 to 3 hour radius, travel by plane and go win those recruits and bring them to Gainesville, Florida, and win, what he did.
Yes.
Now you get a national brand like Notre Dame. They might get a kid or two out of Indiana, but you have to go to California, Florida, up to New York, New Jersey, down to Texas, into the Dakotas to go recruit nationally to the powerhouse that is Notre Dame. And I think that's the level of recruiting now. And we've seen, at least I have as a dad, you see James Franklin, flying private from Happy Valley to somewhere else, jumping in a helicopter, landing on the practice field of a said recruit, jumps out of the helicopter, glad hands the coaches, talks to the recruit for half an hour, then he's back in the helicopter going, So Penn State now, yes, they win Philly and Jersey, but like Penn State is a like Ohio State, and Mark Pantoni knows this very well. You go everywhere to go get the kids and go get the talent. Whereas at Florida, and for Billy Napier and for Urban Meyer, like you really don't have to leave SEC country if you don't want to, because it's you and Florida State battling for a kid, you and Miami, you and Georgia, you and Bama, and so they're two different jobs on what it takes to go win. But I would imagine like James Franklin also, if the Florida job becomes available, because where did James Franklin come from before he actually became the Penn State head football coach? It was Vanderbilt, which was, he actually resurrected and had some success we now see Vanderbilt having with Clark Lee as their head coach, but it's SEC. He knows what it takes to win. He knows the roster that he needs to build to compete in the SEC. And I think if he goes down there, he knows what it's going to take.
Yeah. But if you hire him, would it be the same as you hiring Brian Kelly? You know what I mean? Like LSU, Brian Kelly hadn't won a national major college national championship, but he gotten really close. I mean, wouldn't that be the same kind of hire?
It would, but I also think that you look at there's two different, I guess, mindsets as it relates to head coaches, both in the college and the pro level. Is like, do you want the up and coming coordinator, young guy, more relatable, brings a different energy, or do you want the again, although every coach is going to be fired or leaving someplace for a set reason. It's not always about the money. It might be a better opportunity. But, James Franklin's going to come with his own, some notches in his belt in regards to the winning and the standard. And I also think that I have a great respect for James Franklin and the type of program that he ran, because also when he took that job at Penn State, between the Joe Paterno, Jerry Sandusky, like there was like a dark cloud over the Penn State program. Yeah. And James Franklin, again, was kind of like especially for us in the Big Ten, was kind of an unknown name coming from Vanderbilt, because we didn't really follow the SEC all that closely as a Big Ten, in Big Ten country. He comes up and just, again, the consistency that he developed and kind of held true. There wasn't a bunch of misfits coming to Penn State. There was a standard that James Franklin created at Penn State. And again, his hurdles was winning the big game, but winning lots of games made that fan base, ecstatic to have him as their head football coach. And now it's just unfortunate that the timing presents itself. And again, I'm going to go back to whoever gets that job. There's a big name that the athletic director has to have up his sleeve or have some preliminary conversations with to make this move in season to get that head start and allow them to position Penn State as the premier job on the market to whomever they're going to go hire.
Yeah. I'm on real quick before we move on to just talk about Ohio State. I think we're going to talk about Ohio State briefly now, but I want to ask this. The Curt Cignetti phenomenon is crazy.
It's real.
Here's the thing. I've always said this: it's really easy to go out and try to hire, if you have the largesse to make it happen, to hire the hottest name going, right? I think that's the lazy man's approach to hiring. Curt Cignetti, he's right. Google him. The guy won before he ever got to Indiana, but at a lower level. And now you've seen what he's done with the benefit of NIL and transfer portal and being extremely smart with both of them. I've been talking about this for like months now about Cignetti. I mean, that I thought Indiana was going to be better this year than it was last year. May or may not show because of the schedule was a little bit more difficult this year. I'm talking once they got into conference, not pre-conference. But now it is shown. I mean, dude, they went into Oregon and manhandled Oregon in the fourth quarter with the game on the line. They made the plays. They even gave up a freebie. You know what I mean? He came back and still won it by 10 points. But my point is this. You experienced firsthand going from John Cooper to Jim Tressel. Jim Tressel won 4 national championships at Youngstown State and could have won 2 more. My point is he had a plan, not just about running practice, but he had a plan about building and taking a program to the next level, just like Curt Cignetti has, and what Curt Cignetti has done at Indiana. Indiana would be stupid to let him go for any kind of price at this point because of the money that's flowing in there now. But I'm just asking you experienced a guy coming in with a plan. The first year was not that great for you guys in 2001, but you did beat Michigan.
Yes.
In 2002, the pieces came together. How hard is it, do you think, for somebody to find a Jim Tressel?
I don't think it's that hard. I think you just have to, you have to have a little bit of patience. I would also say that the Cignetti success at Indiana is a little bit of an outlier.
Yes.
To whomever either they bring in from a lower level or from someone who's, maybe had success at a big program, then went back to become a coordinator or coaching at the lower level. Then they're maybe out of football for a year. Then they come back to become a head football coach because they have a namesake on what they did. And I'll be honest, and this is no knock against anybody, is in 2 years from now, if Curt Cignetti maintains what he's doing at Indiana, is Penn State actually, regardless of who they hire, is Penn State actually a better job than Indiana? I don't think so, because it goes back to, it's about the people. Curt Cignetti has came in, revamped the culture, revamped the mindset. He can, I think 8 wins at 8-0, renegotiated his contract and extended himself through 2030 or 2031. So the money is absolutely irrelevant. And the challenge is actually, now that he's the number 3 team in the country at Indiana, the challenge is staying there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which in some cases, James Franklin has failed with staying inside the top 10 because he can't win the ranked, Ohio State comes to town, Michigan comes to town, Oregon comes to town, like those big ranked opponents. We saw Cignetti win it. So if he goes to Penn State, what if he could potentially compete for a national championship in Indiana, why go to State College?
Right.
Like why? The money is irrelevant. What's the challenge? The challenge is to win it in a different uniform. How about he does it where he's at first if he's actually happy? And so, gosh, I love watching Indiana football. Yeah. I would also say that if I'm very unbiased right now. I'm sure when my son, ends up where he ends up, I'll start to dislike these other schools as rivals and want them to lose football games. But for right now, I love the Google me. I love the I win. I love the immediate, literally, I just I shushed the house after the Oregon win just so I could hear what Curt Cignetti was going to say after the game. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm hanging on the edge of my seat on what he's going to say because I saw the product on the field. And so other than ego, right? Which we know he has one and you love it. Other than ego, with what Curt Cignetti is doing right now at Indiana, why would he need to leave and go do it at a blue blood?
Right.
When money's not it's not an object anymore. It's he's going to make as much money as he needs to have at Indiana because he's now given them the success that they're having, and they will just continue to open up their pocketbook. So I think he's unique. He's an anomaly. I think that's the other side of it. When it comes to schools like Penn State or UCLA, do you go with the up and coming coach that has won at the group of 5 level that is due, that you're betting on to continue win in your structure, in your college campus or whatever happens to be? Or do you go with a name that's been there and done that?
Yeah.
So again, I believe Penn State didn't do this on a whim. I believe they have the inside track on a name or two. I believe money is not an object. If you're going to pay $50 million to James Franklin to not coach, that next guy is going to get $50 million to coach.
Yep.
So money's not an object in today's landscape. So they have to have a guy that they believe can win the big one for them.
Yeah. And, and Florida thought when they went and got Billy Napier from Louisiana that they had found that rising star, and
correct.
It hasn't worked out on a consistent basis like they thought it would. So, it's just, what a fickle world we live in now. Pardon the pun.
Well, I just think it's wild that if you, again, just remember, Brett Key at Georgia Tech, spent time on Saban's staff. Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, ranked inside the top 5, spent time on Saban's staff. Kurt Cignetti spent time on Saban's staff at Alabama, ranked inside that's 3 coaches from the Nick Saban tree of success.
Dan Lanning.
I know Bill. Yeah. Dan Lanning, has his team ranked inside the top 10. It's just like, even, Bill O'Brien, not having great success this year at Boston College, but like, it's shoot, who's the next guy,
right,
in the tree of success, that could be Ohio State, that could be Alabama, whoever it might be, who's the next assistant coach that you feel is the right guy for that big job.
Yeah. And the point I was making though, is when Ohio State hired Jim Tressel, he had won national championships. Yeah, at the next level down, but he had won national championships. He had, and he had a track record that shows you give me like equal shot at something, I can achieve. And real quick before we go, what did you notice about him right away that told you he was different? That there was a gleam there that could take you places? Because obviously James Franklin, like you said, came with a play or two. Playing for the national championship against Ohio State last year.
Yeah. To say with Coach Tressel, so Coach Tressel, he brought a level of care that in some cases might have waned with Coach Cooper. So he cared. He didn't really know you yet, but he cared. And he told you that I want to spend time we're going to spend time doing these things to get to know each other and build trust. And then I think what he came in with, because he had a plan. He picked up what he was doing at Youngstown State and just dropped it down. And I think the one last thing that I was thinking about as you were kind of teeing me up for that question about whomever, and it's also probably the most important besides just the guy that you're going to go hire for any job, whether it's UCLA, Penn State, or wherever, is his ability to bring a staff with him that players want to play for. Because I think that's the other side, to go back to bring it full circle to Coach Tressel, is having Mark D'Antonio and Mark Snyder and Jim Haycock and Coach Bowman, and go get these guys that, maybe don't have a significant like name recognition at that juncture, but that he trusted them. He trusted them to nurture these players, develop the players, build a relationship, buy into what we're doing here at Ohio State.
Alignment.
And then they also cared for you as a player and wanted what was best for you collaboratively. And you wanted to go put your body out on the line for them, each and every Saturday.
Yeah.
So Coach Franklin's ability to go wherever he's going to go and bring who he wants with him, but Penn State to hire who they're going to hire, but then put together a dialed in, recruiting staff and offensive and defensive coordinator, and not get sold on these guys, but bring in guys that care, that are winners, is going to mean a lot for the future of that football team.
Hey, with that in mind, Luke Fickell, they just got shut out at home. Ohio State goes to Wisconsin this week, which just got beat, 37-0 by Iowa in Camp Randall. Number one, Luke Fickell's gotten that, the support.
He might be next.
Huh?
He might be next.
Dude, I think anything's on the table anymore, right? James Franklin's owed a fortune, and he's going to get a fortune. And they blinked, but they didn't bat an eye. You know what I mean?
No.
You got to blink whenever you're going to give somebody $56 million or whatever to go away. Now you're doing it in increments, but I don't care. It's still a car payment due every month, or you'll get repossessed. But that's a bad. Well, I don't know if that's a bad analogy or not. But the bottom line is, in this day and age, when these schools are talking about, you got to have they're begging for money to keep up with the Joneses, and then you're giving away half. You're $56 million because you're one of the Joneses, but you want to be the Jones, right? That's what Penn State's doing right now, is jonesing. That's a good. I like that. Where I just went there with that, but Wisconsin's got to be extremely disappointed in what it's got with Luke now well into his tenure, and yet they over the offseason they re-upped with him, so to speak, and stuff. But I don't know, this is an interesting juncture, right? Luke.
I do know, Luke, and it stinks for him because you look at, the job that he left has finally found its way in Cincinnati with Satterfield.
Yeah.
And, they're 5-1. They've got significant money being dumped into their program with a brand new indoor, new locker room. And I'm sure that, Luke has done his best. I do think that Luke, their inability to lock down a quarterback and have that quarterback stay healthy throughout an entire football season, at least for the last 2 seasons, it seems. They just got a bunch of bad luck. They can't score. They can't stop anybody, which coming off of, and I actually read this, that I guess they lost 42-10 to Iowa last year, and the entire offseason they did 42 push-ups, following every spring workout or winter workout as a semblance of it's not going to be like that again. Mm-hmm. And now they get beat 37-0 against Iowa because that rivalry means a lot to them. And now you've got the number 1 team in the country coming to Camp Randall. I don't expect jump around at 2-4, after being shut out at home for the first time in a long time, to be as raucous as it would normally be with the Buckeyes coming to town.
Yeah, you got to have people there to jump around.
Yes, the place won't shake this time. Okay,
yeah, dude,
that's jumping.
I'm telling you, that's the most unsettling. Sitting in that concrete and steel press box and having it go like this. That's very unsettling. Real quick, well, you're taking Ohio State. They sort of went on the road, took care of business on the road. As Ryan Day best put it, they had the game in hand, but they kind of took their foot off the gas pedal a little bit defensively in the fourth quarter. And Illinois they didn't get a cheapie. They had to drive the long way to get it. Yeah. But 34-16 is still a dominant win. I mean, they were only favored by 14, I think, going into the game. But 34-16 is still a dominant win on the road against the number 17 team in the country. Do you agree or disagree? But did you see anything there that gave you concern?
I didn't. I think the one, of course, there's going to be things that are concerning that you want to fix. But I think given the fact that we played as well as we did against Minnesota, the way that we went to Washington and won, that we knew, even being the number 1 team in the country, playing the way that we're playing, that a little bit of adversity in some capacity wouldn't be the worst thing in the whole world.
Yeah.
And I think, some of that, here's what that adversity looks like right now for the Buckeyes is, to your point, Illinois, although they gave us the football, multiple times, so that the defense turning the football over now after being as, suffocating as they are, that's a really, really good thing for the Buckeyes.
That was big.
But Illinois just going, when they wanted to go down the field and score, and whether we weren't as aggressive or we let our foot off the pedal, to your point, that is something that Matt Patricia and the defensive coaches need to address. And so it gives you an emphasis coming out of a win handily on the road against a ranked opponent for you to study, get better at, hold people accountable to, whether that's Matt Patricia holding himself accountable on maybe not dialing up some of the intricacies that we've seen in the past, whether it's maybe a softer coverage or a softer shell, just not to give up the big play.
Yeah.
Some of the backers getting a little nosy, just nitpick some of the things to maintain the edge that we have on defense. And then the one thing that I think our offense is dying for that we've had in the past, and this has nothing to do with the receivers or Julian saying, is we need to pop a run in the run game.
Yeah.
Right now it's 3-4, maybe 5 yards in a cloud of dust, and it's not this is not a knock against any running back. This is not a knock against the offensive line. They're locking up, running their feet. And maybe it's just an immense respect by the defense that they're just fitting those gaps and they're making us work. They're just making us work. And I think, we all as Buckeye fans sometimes want things to come so easy. We just want the blowout. We just want the flash, right? And this run game is a work in progress. You've got, Tyler Bowen, new offensive line coach, run game coordinator. You've got a first-year play caller in Brian Hartline, multi-year, offensive coordinator or co-offensive coordinator. So they're all finding their way. And I think that's the one thing missing when you go back to what Quinshon Junkins and Travion Henderson and J.K. Dobbins and the greats, that we've had at the running back room. They'll go 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, 8 yards, 2 yards, -1, and then it's like 55 for a touchdown.
Yeah.
They'll pop that run, and I don't think that this offense, at least, not Bo, not Peoples, or Donaldson, have really just popped that run yet where they make the safety miss. Right now, the safety, that fifth safety, is getting us down for a 7-yard gain.
Yep.
Right now that extra hat in the box or that half a man is coming up, making that play, and we're going to the ground, for 19 yards. Where in years past, it'd be, Travion to make that guy miss, and it'd be 70. And so that quick score puts our defense back out on the field. We're not relying upon, Jeremiah and Brian Hartline or Carnell Tate dialing up that deep shot. The teams are making us work, and it's not the worst thing in the world. You're going to be a better team because of it. But I think that from an offensive standpoint, that's what you go dig into. So defense, how did they go down the field and go kind of score at will to make it a closer game and letting our foot off the gas? And I think offensively, you dig into that run game, as how can we pop a run? How can, either our running backs or somebody give an extra effort and cover up that last body to allow that running back to, have that vision, make that jump cut and pop that run and really blow that game wide open. Because when we do that, that extra hat, those extra eyeballs will have to be on a run game, which will only allow us to even more so take those opportunities down the field to Jeremiah, to Carnell Tate, Max Clare, on the vertical seam routes type of offense. And I think so. Very comfortable, fixable things at this almost at the midpoint of this football season. But there is some work ahead of this football team. And I love that Ryan Day addresses it because there's a standard there. And they know what they're capable of. And I don't think in some cases coming out of this Illinois game, they have lived up to them and it went the way they wanted it to.
Yeah, agreed. And by the way, when Ryan Day basically last week saying, we need to create some turnovers, that's the kind of one thing missing from the defense overall from the first 5 games. Boom, they go out there, 3 big and they forced every one of them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It wasn't like, oh my goodness,
no freebies.
Luke Altmaier overthrew the ball right to the safety or whatever. That wasn't that first interception by Luke Altmaier all year was Jermaine Matthews making a hell of a play, tipping the ball up, and Peyton Pierce looking Matt Wilhelm like out there pulling the ball down. If you follow my drift, and then the other 2 turnovers were just Caden McDonald ripping the ball out of the running back's hands and stuff. You're right. I mean, so we'll be interested to see if Ryan Day says, by golly, we want some lightning strikes with the running game this week.
Well, Tim, I'll be honest, even as a coach at the high school level, whatever we emphasize,
yes,
you get better at.
That's the word.
And I think so, again, that you're suffocating, you're tackling well, you're not giving up the big play, you're sacking the quarterback. So continue to do those things. And then just and it's usually sometimes like the players, you don't even realize you're not getting turnovers because sometimes you're so suffocating, you're just playing so well. But then when the coach starts talking about takeaways, and it's like all of a sudden it just comes in bunches, And so that's just again, a mind over matter type of thing that if you just keep talking about it and you keep doing those things and putting yourself in position, all of a sudden, when it rains, it pours. It's like, bam, you go from, not being able to turn the ball over to getting 3 in a game. Yeah. And to your point, it wasn't just a bunch of freebies. Those were earned, rakes at the ball, tip balls, that's real good defensive football.
Absolutely. Well, this has been real good podcasting history right here, talking to Matt Wilhelm. It always is. Matt, it's always a pleasure. You know that, man. I look forward to these Mondays. I won't tell people. I won't give people the secret time on what time we record. I'll just let them know the sun is up. But
that's right. Yes, it is.
I won't let them know more than that. But Matt Wilhelm, I'll see you next week, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, Tim. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Matt hit a lot of nails on the head there with our conversation about coaching, making coaching changes, where Penn State possibly could go. But, every time you hire a coach from somewhere else, the dominoes just keep falling right in the coaching ranks, Dillon. And you kind of, I don't feel as sorry for assistant coaches now as I used to, because they make a hell of a lot more money than they did 10 years ago. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of contract Jim Knowles has, for example, at Penn State. Is it binding no matter who the new head coach is? And how can the new head coach may love Jim Knowles, may not like him, may not like the direction, et cetera, it goes. But those are now that'll be answered over the next several months of just how those dominoes fall, right?
Yeah, I definitely think at Penn State, I mean, nobody's going to, shy away from paying those buyouts if Jim Knowles' contract needs to be bought out. If that's the case, however that is structured, nobody's going to shy away from that. They'll do that. Look, the Oklahoma State job's open. There's been speculation about Knowles' interest in wanting to go back there and be a head coach. And then, whatever happens here, most coaches are going to come in. They're going to want to bring in their own coordinators. So I don't know how that works with Penn State. It might be a one and done situation. They're paying them $3.5 million. It's just crazy. Like you said, it's a crazy domino thing that happens. After 1 year, obviously we know how Knowles left Ohio State, and then he might be out at Penn State in 1 year. It'd just be wild.
It is crazy when you think about it. Just like I said at the jump here on this show, college is just almost crying about the fact of needing money, needing money for NIL, needing money for revenue sharing, right on down the line, but they somehow or another scrape up out of the couch.
Yeah, I mean, they find
out of the VIP or the major domos couches. They scrape up enough money to pay off a guy because their pride has been hurt. We should be winning, should be contending for the national championship every year. But now you got Kurt Signetti really stirring that drink.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of places.
Why can Indiana do this?
Right. I don't think a lot of people realize how much money these programs have until it comes to things like this. Like Indiana's a perfect example. There's no reason why Indiana can't sustain this because they have plenty of people giving that program money if they want to. So that's sustainable there in terms of, financially anyways.
They just need to put up a sign now, Indiana football school.
Yeah, football
they
school.
Need to put that up in, up in lights.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because they play at Penn State? Yeah, I think they play at Penn State in a couple of 3 weeks.
Yeah. Other than that, like they're going to go 12-0. I mean, barring
but I'm just saying that's the buzz around that game.
Right. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, they're going to be double-digit favorites in every game they play from here on out. So
yeah. Well, crazy. Terry Smith. I'll be honest with you, I hardly know the name.
Yeah, I mean,
now running Penn State football.
His connection to a couple of former Buckeyes is the only reason I even know who he is.
Yeah,
because of him coaching Dorian Bell and Corey Pittsburgh Brown.
Yeah,
so in Monroeville, that's the only reason I know who he is. So I wonder how Jim Knowles feels about that. To maybe, especially if he is wanting to go be a head coach, and that might have been a nice little audition, if you will.
Yeah, I thought it was Corey Philly Brown.
No, it was Pittsburgh.
Oh, Pittsburgh, Brown?
Monroeville is right outside of Pittsburgh.
I know, but for some reason or other, I had it in my brain. Yeah.
Anyways, regardless.
Doesn't matter.
Bottom line is that's the only reason I know who he is.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Bottom line is they're in the hunt. Meanwhile, Ohio State, boy, they love their head coach.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
The Buckeyes love their head coach. A guy who this time a year ago was coming off a loss.
Yeah.
At Oregon, 1-point loss. The way that game ended was crazy. The journey that this head coach, Ryan Day, has been on over the last, going back to that 12 months, is kind of nuts.
It really has. If you'd have told him leaving Eugene that night, where that season was going to go from there and then, up through this.
The thing is, they lost by 1 point,
to a great football team.
To a great football team at their place in a ridiculous thing. We just saw Indiana go out there and manhandle Oregon in the fourth quarter, especially. I mean, you take that pick six away. Yeah, that's so one-sided a game. It's crazy. Now you don't take pick six away. I understand.
Yeah, those things happen. But
understand how scoring works. But the bottom line is, and then the loss to Michigan, and so many people were coming out of the woodwork, out of the sewers, out of everywhere. Get rid of Ryan Day, and they stuck with him going into. Can you imagine what folly that would have been to fire a coach of a team that was going into the playoffs?
Right?
I mean, how stupid are people really when they think about timing? Now, coming out of that game, if the Tennessee game had gone the other direction, all bets were off.
Yeah.
All bets were off. But they weren't. And now here he is. He's coaching the number one team in the country. Bided his time while Texas and Penn State got beat.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep.
To think about that preseason poll. That preseason poll looks kind of stupid.
Don't sleep on the Longhorns, though.
Yeah,
honestly, I think there's still better football to be played, and then they obviously play
but Penn State's lost 3 games.
Yeah, Penn State's out. I mean, Texas. Don't sleep on the Longhorns.
I mean, there were so many people. Penn State was their hot pick this year to go win it all because why not? And
they were supposed to follow the succession plan, right? Michigan to Ohio State's, and now it's very clearly Penn State's turn. So.
Yeah, and but the bottom line is, here's Ryan Day, and now Ryan Day just won another. His team just won another game by double digits.
Yeah.
All but the Texas game had been won by double digits. Sometimes multiple double digits. And And now he's talking about tuning up the car, man.
Yeah.
Doing the right things with the vehicle. And we all agree the running game has not gotten to where people want it to get. I mean, even Ryan Day has not gotten to where they want it to get. They have some guys coming on. Obviously, Bo Jackson got banged up, has been banged up. I don't know if he was banged up going into the game, but that ankle, had to get retaped on Saturday. He still ended up, I thought, having a pretty good game. And that little catch he caught, that little play he had where he caught that little swing out to the left, that was the play all along, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there watching on television. I didn't go to that on that trip for some reason. I opted not to go, but that was the play all the way because you had
Max Clare
out there, and he was always blocking on that play. And the ball was thrown behind the line of scrimmage, and you had offensive linemen headed that direction also. So at the end of it, but yeah, but Bo Jackson, he has been that spark. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
But C.J. Donaldson's been that guy who scored the touchdown. So
yeah, it sounds like Bo's fine. Ryan was asked after the game about Bo, and Ryan said that had he needed to, he would have came back into the game.
Yeah. So but definitely an ankle though. He's definitely dealing with an ankle,
dealing with something. And look, with the bye week coming out of the following week after Wisconsin, it makes you wonder, could you get him? Could you steal him an extra week of rest and make sure that he's ready for the stretch run?
Yeah.
I know Ryan Day's not going to play that game, at least not publicly, that they think that they can, afford to sit guys for this Wisconsin game. But in reality, I think we all agree that they probably could afford to, ride in there with James Peoples and CJ and even Isaiah West, who's getting, a little more playing time and be fine. So it'd be interesting to see, if maybe they take extra precautions there. But but
let's get to this little sound of Ryan being asked about the run game after the game on Saturday and just what he had to say.
We'll look and see if there were some things that, if there was more there, because, we always want to gain 8-9 yards of carry. When you get tight in the red zone, some of those, like the expectations of those, you're not going to be 4 more, but we want to be 4 more on every run, outside of the 10-yard line. And we need to go and look to see, is it a blocking issue? Is there a personnel issue? Are we blocking and then just getting what we blocked for? We got to look at all those things. But I thought the offensive line was moving people today. When I watched the iPad, I'll have to go back and watch the film. We were moving the line of scrimmage. There were some blocks that we lost across the board, and then got to figure out making sure that the runs are hitting exactly right, because some did, but others, I thought maybe there was more there that we need to figure out why that is.
Got time for 2 more. We'll go here to Adam Rittenberg.
Hey, Ryan, through the first half of the season, what have you learned about this group, especially guys that are either new or in bigger roles on both sides?
Well, one thing is we keep pushing them about being consistent in their approach, and so far we've got that. But it's a long road. We're only halfway through the season. I think the guys who we didn't know about going into the season, they've now proven that they belong. Okay, now what do we want this team to look like as we continue to grow and build? So that's all been good, and they're competitive, they're edgy, they like these type of environments, and they want to be great, and they expect to be great. They expect to win all the time. And as much as I was on them about growing up and maturing, you are seeing a pretty mature group. I mean, they're starting to learn really what it takes, and they're pulling for each other. And I think the last thing is, and this is going to be a challenge for every team in the country, including ours, is just as time goes on, everyone has expectations when they come into a game. When they're not met, it's easy to start pulling in different directions, and that's selfishness. And I think our guys are very unselfish. I think they're coming together as a team, and that's going to be one of the things that we have to make sure is an advantage for us.
The last question, the front row, Adam Zerg.
Ryan, Jeremiah Smith had that tough hit, came out for a little bit, came back in, he had the touchdown catch late. What did you see from him, maybe shaking off that play and impacting your offense today?
Oh yeah, Jeremiah is I can't say enough about him, about Carnell. In a game like this, we found ourselves down in there a lot and ran the ball a lot, and they're into it just like everybody else. I mean, they want to look like last week every week, but when you have a team that understands what needs to get done, that's when you have a chance to be special. And he's a tough player. On that play, we had an opportunity to really have an X play, and actually had 2 guys there to block one. Didn't happen, and so he ended up taking a shot that we don't want to see happen. But he was able to recover.
This was the sound throughout Buckeye Nation at that moment.
Yeah.
When Jeremiah Smith did a face plant, and all of his 230 pounds or whatever he weighs mythically came down on him.
On his neck.
Yeah, he is not. Yeah, mainly his back got wrenched.
Yeah.
You could hear a collective.
Ryan just kind of alluded to it there, but to have two guys out there and neither one of them touched the guy.
Yeah.
And not only did it, potentially get him hurt, but
Searville thought the guy next to him had him. You know what I mean?
I contend, and look, Max Clare had a terrible day blocking on Saturday. There's no two ways about it if you go back and watch it. But I contend that should have been Max Clare there, because if Max Clare gets out there first, if Austin sees him get that, Austin leads Jeremiah up to the hole, and it might go the distance. So
you would think, but the way the play was designed, the way the design looked, he was going to cut up, not go wide.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. Yeah. And it's funny, this happens. You think that this guy here is going to get that guy. I'm going to get this guy.
Right.
And boy, is this going to the house. But then you let a guy come right down the middle of the highway, and boom, you can have an 18-wheeler, and it's going to be a smash up.
Right.
That's a little graphic based on what some of the crashes we've seen recently. But the bottom line is that it was still Jeremiah Smith, maybe the best offensive player in college football, had to be went to the sidelines, and it didn't look good for a little while. But then, to his credit, goes back in the game and later on catches a touchdown pass to keep that stat. And it is what it is. I'm always impressed by guys that could be prima donnas and aren't. Yeah. That guy is far from a prima donna for a big time star as you could find, right?
It'd be very easy for him to be that. Because I still don't think that they get him as many touches as he deserves. I think a lot of people would agree with that. And I think Carnell Tate's the same way. And again, I understand that it's hard to do so with only one football, and you have to go win the football game first and foremost. But it'd be very easy for those guys, especially Jeremiah, to be that kind of guy, and he's just not.
Yeah.
And then you look at the NFL, and a lot of these guys that are coming out of college and being these clear wide receiver ones for teams, they're divas across the board.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
except that Micah Egbuka.
Well, that's very fair.
I'm messing with you.
Well, he's the latest RW or WR1.
Yeah, but he got banged up yesterday. But Jackson Smith and Jig was one of the great guys I've ever met, man. And just right on down the line. I mean,
Ohio State guys are just different.
Yeah. For some reason, they really are, man.
It's true. That's not me being a homer because I cover them. It seems like they're different in terms of their talents, and they're different in terms of their makeup and their mindsets.
Now, they all come from really good families.
Yeah, right.
Number one, but number two, Brian Hartline. Brian Hartline had to pay the price, but he was in the NFL for a long time because he was willing to be a team player. Right. From the time he showed up at Ohio State on, and that's who mentored them. And a lot of these guys could leave, and they didn't leave because they liked Brian Hartline.
Yeah.
And what he brings to the table, what he demands of them, from a blocking standpoint on. So I think that all permeates in who you become, right?
I think that's exactly right. I think everything you have to do to get on the field at Ohio State, plus the fact that there are clearly guys that are, better than you or every bit as good as you in front of you, and you have to wait your turn. I think all of that creates a culture of these guys kind of understanding when they get to the league that like nothing's given to them. They're not entitled to anything because they've had to work. They truly had to work at Ohio State. So I think that's definitely something to it.
And obviously Ohio State finally got outgained in that game, 275 to whatever it was, 258 or something. I'm talking about on Saturday at Illinois. But like you just pointed out, their average field position was a 48-yard line. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
that's going on the road and taking care of business. Yeah. I mean, when you force 3 turnovers like they did, crazy, right?
Yeah. When you put this, when you frame this game, it's still a top 20 road game, or a road game against a top 20 opponent. If you told me before the game or told anybody, whether it was Brett Bielema or national pundits, that Illinois was going to turn the ball over 3 times, that's a non-starter for Illinois. You don't win that game.
Yeah.
Probably Ohio State isn't going to be about anybody if you're going to turn the ball over 3 times. So you take that. Now, yes, it made kind of for some wonky, weird, clanky, offensive numbers and things like that. But at the end of the day, if Ohio State's forcing 3 turnovers, they went. Really, it was almost 4 too because of the punt.
Oh yeah.
So
guy took a knee.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was a turnover on downs.
It was, and it was a 30-40 yard swing too. So.
Oh my goodness, that was so unbelievable. Yep. So that's a good point. But hey, a guy that forced 2 of those turnovers. Let's see what he had to say. Jermaine Matthews moved into the slot because the slot corner, because whatever you want to call it, nickelback slot corner is what I call it. That's what they call it in the NFL, which they're looking for these guys all day. But Jermaine Matthews moved down in there while Devin Sanchez freshman, got his first start at corner.
Yep.
I thought he played well with a few exceptions. They definitely tried to pick on him on one drive in particular. I'm talking about Illinois did. But let's get to Jermaine Matthews because he caused 2 of the 3 turnovers.
When's the last time we forced 2 turnovers?
Yeah, high school. It was fun out there today, man.
Did you think that kind of performance for you was coming?
Yeah, I knew when I got in that slot today it was going to be something. I knew it.
So when you practiced in the slot in the summer, what makes you feel so comfortable there, knowing you're close to the box is a little bit more that you have to do?
I just had a lot of reps at it all year, all summer, off season. Shit in the game this year, and certain packages I've been in the slot as well. So I just been getting comfortable every day.
Do you like that more than outside?
I don't care. I just like to be on the field. That's all that matters to me.
What was your message to Devin when they were trying to pick on him a little bit?
Shit, they coming. You gotta buckle up. Shit, if they don't really care who you are, what gear you in, they coming. So you just gotta be ready.
You played as a freshman a lot. You understand what that's like to somebody to say, like, there's a freshman, we're going to go after him. Did you have a message for him at all, just like pre-game, about like what he was going to end up facing in this game?
Nah, just keeping him ready, just making sure he's good. His head space is there all right, and he's ready to go play. That's just keeping him ready.
I thought Devin Sanchez, like I said, I thought he played extremely well. Yeah. Bottom line is Jermaine Matthews, the way he stepped up and just played ball. I mean, that's what you like about almost everybody that got everybody that got in the secondary.
Yeah.
Just loves to play ball. Davis Nigbenosin had a little bit of a hands thing again. Probably could have been called one more time, but that is what it is. I mean, you kind of become who you are, right? Yeah. Davis and plus people are, officials are looking for that to a certain extent. But Devin Sanchez, I thought, grew as the game went on. Yeah, they picked on him a little bit, but I saw Gary and Conley right on down the line and named me great corners in Ohio State history. Marshawn Lattimore, who got picked on the first time they started games, but they grew out of it fairly well. But what was just your take on that?
I mean, obviously, yeah, you're going to get picked on anytime you put a true freshman out there, start making his first start, his first road start as well. You're going to get picked on a little bit. I thought he, obviously the first play of the game, they went his way and he broke it up. He might have been beat a little bit on that, but showed some really nice recovery speed and broke that up. So that was a good start as well. And then coming out of the right before halftime and then coming out of halftime, Ryan always talks about those middle 8 minutes, and Illinois won those middle 8 by 10-0, and a lot of that was picking on Devin. So look, he's going to be better for it. It's one of those things where get him that experience, and you still survived. You won the football game, you got it there, whatever. And Devin Sanchez is going to be a much better player for it now. Yeah, Jermaine. I was talking to people before the game. We assumed that Devin Sanchez would make his first start, but hadn't known for sure yet when we heard that Lorenzo was going to be out. I think I'm not the only one who said this. I think Jermaine Matthews Jr. is a better player in the slot. I think it suits him, so well. I would love to see him in that role permanently, but also I understand Lorenzo Styles has played well this year. And certainly Devin Sanchez is still a true freshman. So you're not sure you want to, how much you want to, go with him there. But I think Jermaine Matthews Jr. is a perfect slot corner. He showed it. He displayed it on Saturday. So if he had to do it again, I would be more than happy. And when you heard the clip too, he knows that he was going to have a big day as well. He likes being in the slot. It's very clear he's very comfortable in the slot. So yeah, he's quick. Yeah, I mean, that tip he had in the middle of the field. I mean, I was like he said, they saw they were running slants. They'd like to come inside, and boy, he was Johnny on the spot, and then Peyton Pierce plucks the ball out of the air. Yep. You heard Matt Wilhelm talk about that, how cool that is for a linebacker. The interesting thing is Brett Bielema's post-game comments. I don't even know if he mentioned Ohio State. Yeah. It was more like what they didn't do or didn't get done, and I'm just going, well, see, it's one of those things. It's like kind of like Jed Fish a little bit. Right, I mean, shot ourselves in the foot, blah, 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 whatever cliche you want to throw in there. Bottom line is, when you have a defense playing at this level, that's what you look like. Right. And he did lament the fact that they didn't go to tempo earlier, and I agree with him. Like the way that they looked running tempo at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half, I'm not sure why they. But he's the head coach. That's up to him. So I think they probably would have had some more success offensively with that. It just stands the reason. Maybe. When I say more, that could have been marginally more. It just stands to reason against Ohio State's defense that maybe you should try to speed them up and try to play fast, because I don't think you really want to get into like the slow, methodical slugging match. Yeah, let Caden McDonald catch his breath one more second, and you're in trouble. Get those fresh bodies in there. Yeah, so. I thought the pass rush was tepid at points for Ohio State on Saturday, and I think they were just playing.
was like they were playing careful more than they were getting after it up front. That would be a bone to pick I would have about the defense, because boy, when they suddenly blitz, like Jermaine came on that blitz, boom, what's his name, the freak, Arvell Reese. When he came like a monster. He did a Joey Bosa shove sack into a guy, and then still ended up making half a sack on that. And just right on down the line, when they don't blitz they do a lot of zone stuff, zone blitz, but I don't count that necessarily as pure blitz. Yeah. But when they bring that extra guy, they have been fairly effective. They just, under Matt Patricia, they haven't done that a lot. Agreed?
Yeah. No, without a doubt. They simulate pressure so much. What you saw a lot of on Saturday was they were obviously simulating pressure, but they still only brought 4, maybe 5 guys a lot of the time. And as a result, Illinois usually blocked it pretty well, and it allowed Luke Altmaier to get into a little bit of a rhythm.
Yeah.
Too much of a rhythm. Now, I think part of when they simulate that, they still bring 4 or 5 guys, but a lot of that's deception. So they expect that they have confused the front, and somebody's going to get home on that.
Yeah. When
it's blocked well and you're only bringing 4 or 5 guys, it just looks like you're just kind of sitting back and being a little bit, like you call it, tepid. So
but like you pointed out, though they were determined that Illinois was going to have no run game, and Illinois
they had no run game.
Basically had no run game, and Ohio State. And then I thought Ohio State coverage was pretty good. I know they gave up quite a few completions, but when you only give up 16 points, you've had a damn good day.
And a lot of those numbers were inflated by what Illinois did at the end game, when Ryan Davin alluded to it. Like, they clearly let their foot off the gas, and you can't do that. That's a learning lesson for Ohio State. But some of those offensive numbers were kind of inflated by that. Look, I have no gripe about what Ohio State did defensively. I don't have a lot of gripe about what Ohio State did in the game, period. The word I kept on coming back to, at the end of that game, was it was fine. It was a fine performance. It wasn't
fine performance.
It was a fine. Like, it was nothing special, but it was fine. Right. And you're going to have some of those along the way. Ryan Day, spent all last week talking about trying to find things that they have to get better at, getting rid of the rat poison. Well, he just got a perfect opportunity to do that this week. Oh, by the way, while still winning by 18 points against the top 20 team on the road.
He needs to come up with his own thing, though, not rat poison. You got to come up with your own thing, like tainted meat or something.
Now, the one thing that I agree with about in
terms tainted
of
meat
gripes and things is, like, I do have my concerns about this run game going through six games. So the Illinois game included, they have 12 runs of 10 yards or more, only 12. Through 6 games. They're averaging 2 a game. That's
not enough.
They have 1 run of 20 plus yards. One.
Yeah.
And it was James Peoples. Well, when I say this, excuse me, these are the 4 games. These not including the Grambling State and the OU game.
Yeah.
Against their 3 Big Ten opponents in Texas. So they're better talent, teams.
More equate.
Yeah. They have 1 20+ yard run. It's just not to say it's not explosive is an understatement.
Yeah. That's what Matt Wilhelm said, as you heard. You're kind of getting these running backs occasionally at the second level, but then they got to make that guy miss.
Right.
And Bo Jackson has made a couple guys miss, but when the safety's coming up, it's your running back. Now you make him miss. Yeah. We blocked everybody else. And I thought Illinois guessed pretty well. I don't know if it was guessing, it might've been pure scouting, but they had a guy in the hole. That that linebacker had a hell of a day.
Yeah.
All 3 running backs felt him. Bailey. Yeah. All 3 running backs felt him in that game at some point. And he happened to be in the right slot at the right time. So some of that is scouting. Some of that's just pure guile on his part.
Ryan talked about it after the game, and we'll see what he says tomorrow at his weekly press conference. But, he said he'd have to watch the film and see, it felt like some of those were, ready to be hit bigger and they just didn't. So what's the issue? And, when I went back and looked at it, it's kind of been, an extension of what it's been all year. Sometimes it's running backs just not seeing the ball, the field well and seeing holes. Other times it's blocked up poorly. There were times, where Ohio State was ready to knock one big. Look, it's not a coincidence that of those, I said they had 12 runs of 10 yards or longer in those 4 games, not including Grambling and OU. Bo Jackson has 7 of those. He's very clearly so far ahead of the other 2 in terms of being the best running back.
But just give you that half body, man, where you just don't get that pure hit on him and stuff. Right. And it's too bad he ended up with a bad wheel, or at least a low air pressure in one wheel in this game. Because I thought as they ground on him, it was going to. The running game was going to come more and more in fruition. And you're right. Real quick before we go to this sound with Julian saying, just talking about the offense and how it maybe could have been a little bit better, but as he points out, kind of like politely, they had short field. Yeah. But the drive after Illinois' drive to start the second half. The drive Ohio State put on cut Illinois' heart out and put it on the eye in the middle of the field. Like, we can go on extended drives ourselves here. What was it, 17 plays or whatever?
14 plays, yards, I think, yeah.
But that was a big-time college football team answering.
If there was a little kindling of a fire in that stadium, they stamped that out real quick.
That's exactly right. There was smoke.
Yeah,
there was smoke, and then there wasn't.
Yep.
Well, the big air tanker came over.
Yeah, there you go.
But anyway, I digress. Let's get to this sound with Julian saying.
Julian, a game like this today, obviously you guys maybe didn't have the big numbers through the air, but what do you feel like it shows about you guys to kind of grind it out and ultimately get a convincing win?
Yeah, a lot of resiliency. I think the guys played really hard. Defense, can't give enough credit to those guys. Creating turnovers like that, gives us a short field. It makes it a little bit easier as an offense to play downhill when you're playing that short field. So I think they played really well. Off the line, they played hard up front.
Julian, Ryan said that he had to go in the locker room, kind of tell you guys, hey, this is a good win. Sometimes you guys feel like you've left stuff on the field. How do you balance that need to want to be perfect with also understanding, hey, this is a top 20 win on the road?
Yeah, the coaches, they were talking about it. It's a great win. We got closer as a team in this trip, and I think there's definitely stuff we want to clean up. And every game you have stuff you want to clean up. But I feel like we left a couple things out there. But the good plays that we did make were awesome to see. And I think we're going to keep building on this. And it's tough to get a win on the road in this conference. So I think you're going to enjoy the win, and then come in on Sunday and watch the tape and get better from it.
Ryan was talking about you guys maybe understanding what needs to get done with every game. I know you probably would want it to look like it looked last week every single time. Do you have an appreciation for understanding the process of building an offense? It's not necessarily an overnight thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you want to take what the defense gives you first. So we're going to play to. If they're giving us certain coverage and we don't have it, check the ball down. Let's make smart decisions. And, we're never going to lose the game on third down. So if something's not there, we're not going to force it. I think maybe a forced one here or there today. And I think, we just want to keep growing.
Yeah, that's what you want. You got a first-time starting quarterback. Now, we could talk about that till we're sick to our stomach or ad nauseum. But the bottom line is Rex Kern was a first-year starting quarterback in 1968. Yeah. You know what I mean? Craig Krenzel was a first-time, full-time starting quarterback in 2002, 2014. JT Barrett, and then Cardale Jones. Yeah. Cardale Jones. That to me is a moot point. In college football.
Justin Fields was a first-time starter in 19. And
there you go.
Obviously,
and they should have. Yeah. They got robbed against Clemson. But the point is. This is an offense, a quarterback that is growing by the day or by the game. You can see it. And I think the thing that stood out about Julian saying running this offense, I just like his calm and poise. Even he had this moment in the game where there was a guy split left and he was going to bring him in motion to a certain point. He's kind of just real calmly goes like that. And he goes, and I just love that kind of stuff because that means Ryan Day and Brian Hartline and Billy Fessler, they're letting their quarterback kind of run the show a little bit. I mean, be the orchestra, be the director out there of the orchestra, and just little signs of that. And I really like the way this guy. I've liked him from the get-go of his poise in the Texas game, but you see little incremental advances in him almost every series, much less every game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the poise is the word that I continue to come back to. Poise and command. I asked Ryan.
I like poise a lot better than rat poison.
Yeah, well, of course, naturally. I asked Ryan about what command looks like and what it means to him on last Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because the word I kept on coming back to with Julian was that he's in full command and he's always poised. And you saw more of that on Saturday. He started the game with two really nice throws to kind of get settled in and get the offense moving. They go down and get a field goal on the first drive of the game. And while I know that Ryan wanted to put that ball in the end zone, they all did. It was still kind of a tone setter to go get points on the first drive of the game. And they kind of drove that ball down there with ease. So he's always in poise. He's so cool, calm. And when you talk to Julian, everything he does is kind of just really laid back and calm. So it's no wonder that that's the way he is on the field as well. Now, I wish, frankly, they ran the ball 37 times on Saturday and Julian threw the ball 27 times. I don't like that ratio. I don't like that mix. I think they need to put more on Julian's plate. He's displayed that he's going to be poised and calm, and he's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment. I wish they would put more on his plate because, frankly, running the football 37 times against Illinois is kind of what worries me about the Michigan game moving forward.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You've got to have a run game. And you've got to insist on running the ball when you're coaches. You've got to insist on running the ball even when it isn't going great.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. Illinois, based on what I'd seen of them going into this game, if Ohio State had thrown it 50 times, I would have said that is a great game plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I agreed. Yeah.
And just based on, but you've got to, the strange thing for college football coaches is you've got to treat every game as a game, and then also how do you get better?
What do you want to get accomplished
in the game? What do you want to prove to your team that it can do?
Sure.
Right on down the line, so you don't just abandon the passing, the running game.
Right.
And I think it's so important because I thought C.J. Donaldson took a few strides in this game in terms of a little bit of wiggle that I hadn't seen before. James Peoples seems to be running with a little bit of confidence, but they still haven't, like you said, they haven't launched that big time torpedo, man, that you've got to show you've got. Yeah. Otherwise, teams are going to play you kind of soft a little bit, stop the run, but then still be, back on their heels a little bit to stop, get underneath on some of the pass routes and stuff. And so, man, when they can get to that point like they did in the playoffs last year with Quinshon and Travion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if that exists, if that level exists for this team, I'm not entirely sure, and that's my worry.
But that's the quest.
That is the quest, and you're right that you can't abandon. Nobody can abandon the run. It doesn't matter how bad your run game is. Look, Ohio State's run game's not bad; it's just not explosive.
Right.
But no matter how bad it is, you can't abandon it. What I don't like though is what you just said. Well, not about what you said, but what it makes me think of is you're right. Like you go into a game saying, like, we want to accomplish this, we really want to do this, and just show that we can do these things. Well, that's gotten Ohio State beat by Michigan, 4 straight years.
Right.
And so I just really hope they don't go to Ann Arbor thinking we're going to run the ball 37, 40 times, whatever the case may be, and show that we're a more physical team, because that's how that plays right into their hands again. And I just, that worries me. But the
last game of the regular season, you should be who you are.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, and they tried to still be somebody they weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, against that defense, when you run the ball pretty much at their 2 best players on their team, not on their defense, but on their team,
right.
That was troubling.
And who they're going to be at the end of this year, I firmly believe is a team that, still has Jeremiah and Carnell, Tate, and capable tight ends, and like Julian Saying, who's proven that he needs to throw the ball 30, 35
And
times.
boy, based on Saturday night, this is not the Michigan defense of last year, much less of old.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. Maybe they can run the football against Michigan, because that's not Michigan runs the.
No, they don't have Mason Graham and that other kid whose name I always forget. Hey, Dillon Davis, thanks for coming on the Tim May Show, man.
My pleasure.
And everybody who knows us knows that we're big golf buddies now.
Yes, sir.
You've augmented because my buddy Paul Spahn had a little bit of some challenges, Moose, earlier in the year, and you stepped into the breach to give me some golf partnering with a guy I know, as opposed to, hey, anybody want a game?
Right. It's been
that's the last thing I want, is a game with anybody.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I know it's been a pleasure. Certainly to play golf with you.
Hey, before you go though, because you won't be back on Wednesday or Friday of this week with me. Luke Fickell in Wisconsin got beat 37-0 by Iowa, which isn't known for points. It's known for corn, not points.
Corn and defense and tight ends.
Dude, what do you expect on Saturday after late afternoon or mid-afternoon in this kind of game at Camp Randall Stadium, which heretofore had been sort of a formidable place to play, but the last time Ohio State went up there, they took care of business.
The last couple of times, it's just not felt the same as, what Camp Randall usually feels like. Growing up, me as a Buckeye fan, when Ohio State's going to Camp Randall, that was a house of horrors.
More like, now it's more like Camp Joy, like when you're a little kid going on
Ohio State
summer camp.
Ohio State opens a 27.5-point favorites.
That's crazy.
I fully expect them to cover that. Look, Wisconsin's run defense particularly had been pretty solid, as you would expect in Wisconsin, but Iowa ran for 210 yards on Saturday. So, and obviously Iowa doesn't have nearly the passing offense to test you vertically and maybe loosen up some of those boxes. So, I fully expect, Ohio State to cover that 27.5. That's a bad offense. It'll be interesting to see who starts at quarterback for Wisconsin.
Yeah.
They benched Danny O'Neal for that Simmons dude. He's been terrible, but then Danny O'Neal also had thrown 5 picks in 5 games. So I'm not sure what they do there.
Right.
It's another clearly if Ohio State gives up more than 10 points, you'd be disappointed in it. So it should be beat down city. I don't know what happens with Fickell moving forward. I don't know how they can continue to keep him around.
I just think they haven't gotten that guy. The guy they've gotten at quarterback always gets hurt.
Yeah.
They're like last year, Tyler Van Dyke. I mean, they got him from Miami.
Yep.
Boom, Alabama game, suffers a season-ending knee injury. It's just wow, too bad, right? I mean, but
it's going to be embarrassing.
But that doesn't mean anything about your defense. I mean,
well, they're on the field a ton, I guess, so that doesn't help.
Right.
But again, you expect them to be good defensively, but if they can't get a breather,
I just see mismatches everywhere for the Ohio State when it goes offensively. I'm not saying it's like a buffet line, but Ohio State should be able to throw the ball on these guys, and because they don't have that terror coming off the edge, or there's no J.J. Watt sitting there,
or T.J. Watt for that matter.
Yeah, or T.J. Watt. So, it's just too bad because we'll end it with kind of the way we started. The hot seat is now, 3 weeks ago, James Franklin was far removed from the hot seat.
Yeah.
He'd taken his team to the college football playoff semifinals the year before and almost got into the championship game. And he had started undefeated, and it was a showdown.
Double overtime.
And then double overtime against Oregon. You don't make the plays at the end. You get beat. Then he lost 3 in a row, and now he's gone.
So it happens.
That's crazy.
That happens that fast. Meanwhile, Wisconsin.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's crazy.
Right. Meanwhile, in Madison, this has been a slow burn. This has been a fire that's been raging for a while now, and that it's going to be embarrassing what that atmosphere looks like on Saturday because just the read I've gotten from Wisconsin fans is they're not showing up. They don't care anymore.
Right.
To hell with it. They know what it's going to be on Saturday. So Camp Randall is going to be an embarrassing atmosphere on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you think those board of regents and everybody that makes those decisions in Madison, are going to be fine with that. I don't know.
Here's the balance before we go. What they're juggling now is with all these schools is okay. There's millions of dollars up in the air.
Yep.
If we don't make a change and look proactive, like we got the answers, then the millions we're paying this group and these guys is over in this hand. The millions is going to take to get rid of these guys is in this hand, and the ball up in the air is the revenue dollars of how much it's going to cost us, how much we're going to make, how much it's going to cost us if we don't get rid of this ball.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the ball they're playing with. And it's crazy, man. College football's never been crazier in that respect than it is now. In my 50-something years of covering it.
The things that where you've gone, like the decades and the eras of college football that you've traversed, to see where it is now, I'm sure is crazy from where you started.
But I remember Earl Bruce lost three in a row there in '87. And the last loss I think was to Iowa. And that year, and next thing you know, he's fired before the Michigan game, but they let him coach the Michigan game.
Earl headbands.
1987, and you're just kind of going, wow. But it was 3 in a row for James Franklin. It was 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we'll see where this one goes. But you know what? For Dillon Davis, I'm Tim May. And by the way, read Dillon Davis at the Delaware Gazette, but he's on Twitter. You can see his stuff. Where else can they see your stuff? Is it DelawareGazette.com? What is it?
It's Del Gazette, DELGazette.com.
Yeah.
Certainly on Twitter as well. Like I post a lot of videos because I understand that not everybody wants to read stuff. So I figure if I post a video and let you hear it straight from the horse's mouth,
that's my
speak, then so be it. And then obviously the videos do well. So on Twitter it's at Dillon Dillon Davis 56. Give me a follow.
I'm video almost all the time now because I probably wrote 1.8 million stories.
Well, for you
in the day. Yeah, but I mean mainly I like you said, I always wanted complete quotes, not snippets of quotes.
Right, exactly.
And that used to make my editors mad because I didn't want things out of context.
Yep.
In my stories, and as journalism has evolved now, it's all more about the sound bite, even when you're writing a story. But I think when you can show the guy saying it, pardon the expression, saying, when I'm just saying, when you can show the guy saying it, and let people see it's coming out of his mouth.
Right.
This wasn't made up or bent in any way, I think it's a big deal.
While it's our job to do it, obviously sometimes you lose some of the subtle facial expressions, reactions that kind of give some a little bit of added context to what they're saying. So, I like to post a video. So.
There you go. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for Dillon Davis, I'm Tim May. Until the next Tim May show featuring Clay Hall, who will be back middle of this week. We'll see you then.